So, good morning to everyone, and welcome to the European Shortage Monitoring Platform Essentials and Industry Reporting Requirements webinar. I'm Pedro Pina, Monitoring Value Stream Owner, where this new platform, the ESMP, falls in. It's a lovely day in Amsterdam, so I hope you enjoy the webinar. Before we start, 2 housekeeping notes. First, this session is being recorded and it will be available through EMA corporate website and also YouTube channel. And throughout this webinar, you will be able to ask questions or give your input via Slido. The interaction via Slido is voluntary and you may opt to remain anonymous. If you use Slido, you consent to the processing of your personal data, as explained in the EMA data privacy statement. This webinar is part of a wider communication plan, as it will be shown later. Therefore, communication and interaction with industry remains as one of the most significant aspects of the ESMP implementation. With me, I have Monica Diaz, Head of Supply and Availability of Medicines and Devices, Sofia Zastavnik, ESMP Product Owner, Marcos Fernandez Gomes, PMS Product Owner, and Abina Lisa, ESMP Change Lead, who will be managing the questions you may ask in Slido. Around 10:40, we will have a short coffee break, and in principle 5 minutes, but if time allows, more. As part of this webinar, we have 3 main objectives. First objective, increase your familiarity with the platform, understand the key aspects of the legal framework for shortage management, and learn what data and data sets is required for routine shortage, preparedness, and crisis reporting. The second is collect your feedback, your questions, and also give some answers today. And finally is to give you awareness of what will be the next steps. As I mentioned before, this webinar is part of a wider communication plan. More events have been planned and they will come, and we want to share with you what is coming next between today and November 2024, when the ESMP goes live for industry users, and later on in February 2025, when the platform is also available for NCAs. So you will have this code, and with the use of your mobile, you can, or any other device, you can access to Slido, and you can give your input or ask questions. With this introduction, I give now the floor to Monica Diaz.
Thank you very much, Pedro, and good morning, everyone. So I would like to guide you through shortage management in the EU. Next slide, please. So I think it's important to mention that improving availability of medicines authorized in EU has been a key priority for the European Medicines Regulatory Network. So these are the national competent authorities in the member states, EMA, and the European Commission for a number of years. But not only within Europe, but more globally, we understand that we have to work with our partners in other jurisdictions. We have to work together in order to prevent shortages and limit their impact on patients when they occur. Now, one of the initial initiatives of the MRN was the setting up of the HMA-EMA Task Force on Availability of Authorized Medicines, and this was already in 2016. And this task force was set up in order to provide a strategic support to tackle disruptions of medicine supply and ensure their availability for patients. So EMA's role has changed when it comes to crisis preparedness and management. And this is a result of the regulation 22.123, following, of course, the COVID pandemic. So during the COVID pandemic, EMA went beyond its remit and had a pivotal role in coordinating activities within the MRN. And those activities and those processes and structures that were set up ad hoc during the COVID pandemic have then been formalized through Regulation 22.123. So we have now a framework for the prevention, the monitoring, and the mitigation of potential and actual shortages of medicines. And we've implemented Regulation 22.123 by setting up the processes and the tools for reporting so that we can have a response to shortages, a EU-coordinated response to shortages during a crisis, but also a number of preparedness activities that are foreseen for shortages of medicines under this regulation. This regulation, as I mentioned, also establishes or formalizes ad hoc systems set up during the COVID pandemic, and that is the case of the MSSG, the Medicine Shortage Steering Group, that is supported by the SPOC Working Party that was already established in 2019 as a deliverable of the HMA-EMA Task Force, but again, also formalized through Regulation 22.123. But it also foresees the setting up of a network of single points of contact for pharmaceutical companies, the so-called MAH iSpokes. Now, very important, this regulation also foresees the development of a central platform, the European Shortage Monitoring Platform, and we have actually a legal deadline for the go live of the platform, which is February 2025, and that's why we're here today. So I've already mentioned a number of activities that relate to medicine shortages, but I wanted to just expand a little bit on the coordination of activities when it comes to medicine shortages and availability of medicines more broadly within the EU. So as I mentioned, we've already established in 2016 the HMA-EMA Task Force on Availability of Authorized Medicines. And that task force is really has been set up to come up with structural and strategic solutions for the issue of shortages and availability of medicines, and focuses on the development of guidance and policy measures. So it is always active, and we can say that it acts during the so-called normal circumstances. It is also used nowadays as a supply and availability hub, and this is because we have a number of activities now ongoing when it comes to the availability of medicines, and it's important that we find synergies between all those activities and avoid duplication. Now, on the right-hand side, you see the Executive Steering Group on Shortage and Safety of Medicinal Products. So this is the so-called MSSG, which is an executive group. So as I said, was set up in the context of Regulation 22.123. And it has a role when it comes to crisis and preparedness activities. When we're talking about crisis, we refer to public health emergencies, but also major events. And the Executive Steering Group has an executive role, as its name indicates, and it has a role when it comes to adoption of lists of critical medicines during a public health emergency or for a major event, also giving an opinion on a major event, monitoring shortages, supply and demand, and very importantly, putting forward recommendations to member states, to industry, and to the European Commission. Now, the engine of all those activities is there in the middle, is the Medicine Shortages Spark Working Party. As I mentioned, this is the operational group formalized also with Regulation 22123 that works both in normal circumstances and also preparedness activities and during a crisis. So the role of the Spark Working Party that meets on a monthly basis, virtually and twice a year face-to-face, is to monitor shortages, then drafting lists of critical medicines during a public health emergency or major event that are subsequently endorsed, adopted by the MSSG, and monitor demand and stock data in preparedness or during a public health emergency or major event. So I wanted just to mention as well, and you see at the bottom of this slide, that role for the task force in coordinating a number of activities, and perhaps important to mention here, the joint action on shortages, JESMAN, a very important initiative bringing harmonization to activities in the area of medicine shortages for the member states, but also the EMAN strategy to 25 that is being implemented through the work program of the AGMA-EMA task force. And as already mentioned, EMA's extended mandate at the bottom there that relates to Regulation 22123. So in terms of data collection, so what we see here on the left-hand side is data collected by the so-called NCA SPOCs. So the SPOC Working Party consists of representatives from each national competent authority in the member states. They collect information from the stakeholders at national level, and that information is subsequently submitted to EMA or sent to EMA. But EMA also collects information directly from marketing authorization holders through the ISPOCs on a crisis that involves information for centrally authorized products, but also nationally authorized products if they are included in any lists of critical medicines for a particular crisis. And in preparedness, that involves only shortages of centrally authorized products. So the EMA processes all the information that collects on one hand from national competent authorities, on the other hand from industry, and that information is then processed and discussed at the level of the SPOC Working Party for regulatory action, coordinated activities at EU level, and if necessary, it is escalated to the executive group, the MSSG, that in turn liaises with the European Commission to put forward a number of recommendations. So I already mentioned lists of critical medicines during a major event or a public health emergency. So that's what you see on the right-hand side in red. So when there is a public health emergency, and we had already two, COVID and Mpox, very quickly we set up a list of critical medicines that are crisis-specific. So here we're talking about crisis-specific lists of critical medicines that we will then closely monitor for shortages and supply and demand data. And all that is to be undertaken through the ESMP, of course. Now, there will be also a situation where we might set up a list of critical medicines for the so-called MSSG-led crisis preparedness. An example here was the joint exercise we did with European Commission, HERA, on the antibiotics, shortages of antibiotics. So that would be MSSG-led crisis preparedness. So here we are putting in place a number of activities so that we can, as much as possible, prevent a crisis. And in such cases, we will set up a list of products that will be closely monitored and where we will collect information on supply and demand as well as shortages, and that those activities will be done through the SMP. Now, I think it's important to mention that this happens when the MSSG believes that there is a need to undertake those activities. So these are not routine activities, the MSSG-led crisis preparedness. Now, when we look at the left-hand side, we see the Union list of critical medicines. So this, the first version of the Union list was published in December of last year. this list has been set up in order to ensure that for those medicines that are included in union lists, patients have medicines available at all times, because those are the medicines that are most important for public health systems in Europe. Now, I think it is important to mention that there is no immediate reporting requirements to the ESMP for the medicines that are included in the union list of critical medicines. Unless, of course, we are talking about shortages of centrally authorized products that are included in this list. So when I talk about reporting, I'm talking about reporting through the SMP. Of course, that shortage reporting for nationally authorized products will continue to the national competent authorities as per the current process. So I will now continue and just give a little bit more detail when it comes to reporting to the SMP. So I think we've addressed already right-hand side crisis, so public health emergency or a major event. So we will establish, adopt a list of critical medicine specific, crisis specific in the case of a crisis, a public health emergency or a major event. And there will be a number of actions that are immediate, necessary through the SMP, a number of data elements that need to be reported, and in scope of those lists, as I mentioned, we can have CAPs and NAPs, or either CAPs or only NAPs. So that there is really, it depends on the public health emergency, major event, and this is only triggered when there is a recognition of a public health emergency or major event. Now, if we move to the middle, here we're talking about the MSSG-led preparedness activities. So this is when we are addressing an event that may lead to a public health emergency or a crisis. The MSSG will put forward an announcement, a recommendation for these preparedness activities, and the MSSG will also adopt a list of medicines that need to be closely monitored using the MSSG. So this will be defined and agreed at the level of the MSSG before any of these activities will take place through the SMP. Now, if we talk about routine shortage reporting, so this is what we have in normal circumstances at so-called peacetime. So here we're talking about early reporting of shortages so that we can prevent, manage, and mitigate the impact of those shortages. I think it's important here to mention that this focuses only on centrally authorized products. So all centrally authorized products that will be reported for shortages, any shortage reporting will be done through the SMP. And with this, I now give the floor to Sophia to give us an overview of the SMP. Sophia.
Thank you, Monica. So, hello everyone. So I will give you a high-level overview and what the ESMP consists of until we go into the details of the reporting requirements. So, the ESMP vision and purpose. So, of course, the ESMP will enable the information exchange for the better prevention, identification, and management of shortages. And will also act as the communication tool between the EMA, national competent authorities, and industry stakeholders to ensure medicines availability for patients during public health emergencies and major events. So the platform will have multiple functionalities. So data collection will consist of collecting data on shortages, but also the supply and demand of medicines. The ISPOC registrations is also a very important point and allows us to have single points of contact for all industry representatives in case there is a crisis or a situation where we need to reach out and request data. In terms of analysis and reporting, of course, here the most important functionality is matching the supply and demand. So the data that we're getting from the industry with the data that we're getting from the NCAs, and then seeing if shortages will be occurring. There is a reporting functionality, of course, embedded in that. So we'll be having the detailed reporting on findings and results, and also producing public reports. Shortages management, of course, here we will be maintaining a critical medicine products list, but also evaluating and managing medicine shortages, and data integration. This refers to data integration to all the parts of SPORE, but also IAM and IRIS integration, and the interoperability with the NCA and industry systems for sending data directly to the ESMP. The platform will have user interfaces which will have secure access. National competent authorities will have their own part of the platform where they submit data, retrieve reports, and manage shortages. So that will be secure, and the same will be happening for marketing authorization holders that will have a different part of the platform to submit data in scope of reporting requirements. There will also be a public website where anyone can search for information on critical medicine shortages. Now, to the benefits of establishing the ESMP. Of course, in terms of the prevention of shortages, here we're talking about the streamlined reporting of data on shortages for the better prevention, identification, and management, and also the facilitation of medicines availability to ensure that medicines are available during public health emergencies and major events. In terms of interoperability and the user friendliness, of course, we want to make this a user-friendly platform, which will be designed with continuous enhancements and technical improvements. And there will be alignment with advancements in the regulatory and the technical spheres, and also synergies among different data sources. Transparency and collaboration is, of course, a very important part. So we'll be streamlining that collaboration with different actors and ensuring consistent messaging across the stakeholder fora. And there will be organized support in case of user challenges in the adoption of the platform, and also the public access to information. Okay, now we're diving a little bit deeper in each of these functionalities. In terms of data collection, the ESMP will be allowing both manual and machine-to-machine submissions of data. The tabular submission of data will be available through Excel templates via the ESMP user interface. However, if the industry and national competent authorities wish to make their platforms interoperable with the ESMP, then the machine-to-machine submissions will be possible as well. Here in the screenshot, you can also see an example. So this is one of our reporting templates where for the here in the screenshot is specifically a case for the marketing authorization holders, where when they enter the platform, they download templates which are pre-submitted with their data in scope of reporting requirements, and then they further submit data for these specific products. So it's tailored to each specific user and their access rights and their products, of course. So users will be required to submit data through the ESMP in 3 different instances. So for crisis, MSG-led preparedness, but also routine shortage reporting. While national competent authorities will be providing data on national demand, stock and supply levels, patient estimation, and medicine usage, marketing authorization holders will be giving data on medicine availability, forecast of supply, alternative therapies, marketing status, manufacturing details, and production plans. So both national competent authorities and marketing authorization holders will be submitting data through the ESMP. Now, zooming into the marketing authorization holder submissions. Now, in normal circumstances, here we're talking about shortages of centrally authorized products triggered by a potential or actual shortage. So, the data to be submitted here is shortage information prevention and mitigation plans, the impact assessment, and alternative therapies. And of course, in the second part of the webinar, we'll be going in depth into each of these data elements. During an MSSG-led preparedness exercise, the MAHs will follow the same submission process as during crisis situations for the subset of products subject to that close monitoring. And that would be the data submission for nationally and centrally authorized products which are in scope of the critical medicines list for that particular public health emergency or major event. So again, MSSG-led preparedness and crisis reporting will only be for a subset of products that will then be defined by the MSSG. So that will involve shortage information, again, prevention and mitigation plans, marketing status, the market share, sales volume, sales forecast, manufacturing information, including the production plans, capacities, and alternative sites, and alternative therapies. So for MSSG-led preparedness and crisis situations, the frequency of reporting will be defined by the MSSG and the submissions will be triggered by an MSSG announcement. And the commission actually recognition of a crisis as well. So if these submission processes are triggered, the MHs would be informed of the reporting requirements directly. In terms of data analysis and reporting, so in the back end of the ESMP, we're building an entire data analytics platform, which will be then matching that information that is received from our stakeholders, and then seeing what the output is, and of course presenting and sharing that information with our further stakeholders for decision making at a European level. So, of course, this will be for the medicinal products in scope of reporting requirements through a tool for the automated analysis, visualization, and monitoring. So there will be centralized public health emergency dashboards to structure data and allow a deep understanding of the supply and demand of those products across the EU and EEA, but also country-specific monitoring dashboards to allow for the structured visualization of supply and demand data in each member state. And here, the national competent authorities will not only be submitting data to the ESMP, but also having that view of the outputs of the data analysis and seeing how that data matches with the information received by the marketing authorization holders. So we are not only receiving that data, but also sharing it back with the national competent authorities when we analyze it together with the information we received from the industry. And therefore, we will also be producing those monitoring dashboards. Also, in the ESMP, we're building a tool for the management of shortages that the EMA team will be using for the triage, evaluation, and management of shortage cases through that integrated and automated system. Also, we will be creating and continuously updating lists of critical medicinal products as defined by the MSSG. And as this list will be specifying the categories of medicinal products that need close monitoring, we'll be also mapping that to specific medicinal products authorized in PMS, and then incorporating that information in the ESMP for effective data collection, analysis, and management. Data integration, of course, is a very key aspect here, because we are integrating data from multiple parts of the EMA data management systems, so which will include SPOR data, IAM data, and IRIS information. So, of course, this will be enabling the reliable exchange of information in a consistent and robust manner by providing master data and a common language used across the EU and EEA. First of all, the ESMP is integrated with the EMA account management portal, which is a secure online platform for requesting and managing access to EMA applications. So through this, the access to particular data will be granted to each user. So marketing authorization holders will be able to see and submit data only for their products, and national competent authorities will be submitting information for products authorized in their countries. So then the access is tailored to each user and also safeguarded. So only that user has access to the particular set of information which belongs to them. On the integration with SPOR, here we are retrieving harmonized data on products, referentials, substances, and organizations. So PMS and SMS will be giving us data on the products, the active substances in products, and all the other product master data. The OMS will be providing us the manufacturing sites, and the RMS list we're using across the ESMP platform to structure and standardize the submission of data. IRIS currently contains marketing status information of centrally authorized products. Of course, marketing status information is extremely important for the management of shortages, and therefore we are using that data which is already there. Already MHs are submitting that data in IRIS on centrally authorized products only, and we are using that data in the ESMP platform. So there is no duplication of submission there. Data integration also extends to the interoperability with national and industry systems. So interoperability here we're defining as the ability of organizations to interact towards mutually beneficial goals, and involves the sharing of information and knowledge by means of the exchange of data between their ICT systems. So this allows to establish direct links to data across national and industry databases, enabling seamless machine-to-machine data exchange, and of course then harnessing existing data on the supply chain of products. Of course, a prerequisite for achieving this interoperability is the mapping of PMS identifiers with the product identifiers held in industry and national product systems. Because in order to achieve this interoperability, we need to have a mutual product master data standard, which is then used to identify the products and therefore report the information for those products. And unless we are all speaking the same language, that is not possible. So for the interoperability to work, of course, we need legal interoperability. So we're all following the same regulations and guidelines. Organizational, here we're talking about business processes, roles, and expectations. The semantic one, which is the definition of the data and rules, and also the technical interoperability, which involves protocol security and web services. So Pedro will be talking about that a little bit more in the towards the end of our webinar, but of course this is something we have been working on. So I will stop now here for a second, so we have a very short coffee break, but these are the parts of the ESMP platform that we wanted to introduce. And now, after the coffee break, we'll be going a bit more in depth into the reporting requirements, the data elements, and also Marcos will be talking about the dependencies on PMS and what are the necessary actions. Pedro, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thank you very much, Sophia. So we have now time for coffee break. We stop now and we resume at 10:45.
Okay.
Thank you. So, good morning. Coffee break time is now over, and we will continue with the webinar. We have Sophia now sharing the development timeline and dependencies of the new platform. Sophia, please.
Thank you, Pedro. So we are going into the section with to explain how we work and how we are building the ESMP. So I'll then go on the next slide. Okay, so how we are building the ESMP. So we're building and using the agile way of working. So we're building in line with the scaled agile framework. Which means that products like the ESMP start with basic features, which is the minimum viable product, and then we gradually add more over time. So with the MVP, the idea is to have a product that works, where all the functionalities are available. But of course, we will be taking feedback and also implementing and making the platform better over time. Once also our stakeholders use it and are able to provide input. The network and industry stakeholders are a key part of the agile product teams, and they participate directly in the delivery of all the products within the network portfolio. So in terms of the incremental development, the features of the ESMP are released gradually towards that minimum viable product, which will be delivered in line with the requirements set in the regulation. Following February, the platform will evolve through consistent enhancement and improvements. The stakeholder collaboration is an integral part of our process, and we maintain regular and close interactions with both industry and network stakeholders. So we want to understand their needs. They share information with us and also us with them. We align on priorities and leverage insights and know-how from our stakeholders. We also have an interconnection within the value stream, as you saw in the previous slides, where we have presented all the different parts of the EMA data management system and different products within the EMA that we are integrated and interconnected with. And therefore, the ESMP is also another part of this EMA network portfolio, which is organized in value streams. Now, these products are interconnected and complementary, aiming towards a vision of bringing comprehensive value to health and patients across the EU and EEA. This is the high-level diagram of the ESMP and how we are getting towards the delivery of the minimum viable product. Now, in dark green are the features that are completed, in light green are the ones that are in progress, and in white are the ones that we have not started yet. As you can see from this, our initial focus was on the features for marketing authorization holders, where we built individual data submission flows, ensured a very user-friendly user interface, and also ensured that these features are ready first. Now we are also working on the NCA features, also building the NCA user interface and different data submission flows for crisis and MSSG-led preparedness. And at the same time, we are building the analytics platform, where we, as I said before, match supply and demand, and we're building dashboards and reports. And also the shortages management part is built at the same time. So this is all a complex ecosystem which then works towards having that integrated product with all its components. PMS integration for centrally authorized products was the thing that we worked on first in terms of data integration. The RMS lists are also used within the platform. We have also now ingested PMS data on nationally authorized products when that became available, and we are also working on the making the ESMP interoperable for the direct machine-to-machine communication with the industry and national systems. For the development timeline, so in the pale colors, let's say in gray, you can see that the incremental development and incremental delivery has been happening towards then the MAH preparedness and crisis go live, which is planned to happen in Q4. And also the incremental delivery of features for national competent authorities, which we then plan to release in Q1. The same for the public platform go live and all of that towards the legal deadline of February 2025. In these big go lives, we also have marked a dependency on PMS data as in order for the platform to work, the data on products on the detail level of granularity needs to be available for the data submission flows to work. Stakeholder collaboration in product development has really been a key part of our development process. And we have 3 national competent authority subject matter experts and 3 industry subject matter experts, which have been part of the team, of the Agile delivery team from the beginning. So they also share input, expertise, know-how, suggestions, and priorities. And in turn, we bring to them proposals, business requirements, and product mockups. So here we have the bi-weekly SME fora, where when the business analysis of any part of the platform is concluded from the EMA side, we bring that proposal to our subject matter experts, and then they give their feedback on it. And once we have also their agreement and everything also works for both the industry and the NCAs, then we go towards implementing that. So, as I said, they support the definition and the development of the minimum viable product. They provide recommendations and support consistent enhancements to the ESMP. Of course, giving their expert input and collaborate in the formulation of business requirements. So they support the product owners with the insights on behalf of the industry stakeholder groups and inform the prioritization. We also have a very wide let's say, strategy of communication, and we have many channels of communication and receiving input and feedback on the developments. So we discussed that in the monthly SPOC working party meetings, where we have all the national competent authority representative, the MSG meetings where we bring the matters to the heads of medicines agencies. There is a specific MSSG subgroup, which is dedicated to the ESMP and has a close overview of the developments. We also show the developments in the quarterly system demos. We bring it to the MPAC and NICTAC meetings, the IT directors, but also we have EMA industry bilaterals, the strategic portfolio reviews, quarterly ISG meetings, and also the network also participates in the quarterly system demos. In terms of the flow of information, now the member state data systems and the industry data systems will be connected with the ESMP. The NCAs will be reporting critical national shortages and will be providing data on the demand. And that data will then be submitted through the ESMP by users accessing it and downloading those reporting templates to submit data. And with that, the template for the users will be shown in the ESMP. As I said before, for each user that will be tailored for their the products in their scope. and users will complete the ESMP templates with the relevant information per product. Then the data will flow in the data analytics platform, and that will then support the regulatory coordination between the spoke working party, the MSSG, and the European Commission. And with all that, we plan to do the small task of preventing, monitoring, and managing shortages. I will give the floor now to Marcos to explain what the requirements are for that submission of data from PMS, then to work for the ESMP submissions. Marcos, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Sofia. So, yeah, Sofia was saying here in this slide, and it's a slide that you have already seen in different webinars that we have provided from PMS. You can see that we have the flow of data from the MA holders until ex-EVMPD or SIAMED. So whenever you have an approval of a medicinal product, once this is authorized, MA holders should submit this information to ex-EVMPD, the Article 57 database. And in the case it is a CAP, a centrally authorized products, then EMA is going to introduce this information also in our internal database, which is SIAMED. Then from ex-EVMPD and from SIAMED, this data is going to go into PMS. So any change that is performing one of those databases will appear in PMS. And from PMS, you can see also in this diagram, it will go into IRIS, where it will be consumed by different systems. So for example, we have in this case ESMP, AEF, or ASU, but we also have the PLM portal. So you know that in the PLM portal, we also have the product user interface. This is a graphical representation where you can see all the data that we have for your products in PMS. And then from the PLM portal, you can also open a variation form and you can make changes to your products, and then the circle is closed. What we want to represent with this diagram is that any information, and in your case, we are talking about here about ESMP, pack sizes and medicinal products that are submitted to ESMP will appear in PMS because we have what we call the deltas from ex-EVMPD to PMS. So any change or any insert to ex-EVMPD will flow into PMS. And therefore, from PMS, they will go to IRIS, and systems like, for example, ESMP will be consuming our data. In the next slide, if I can go to the next slide, please. We have a couple of actions for MA holders. So you already know that you need to make sure that authorized pack sizes for products under the Union list of critical medicines should be submitted to ex-EVMPD before February 2025. This is an activity that you can already start performing. Ex-EVMPD is already available to submit pack sizes for all products. So this is an activity that you can already start. In case of a crisis or a MSSG lead preparedness exercise, then MA holders will have 14 days to submit pack sizes information to ex-EVMPD. What we are trying to do now, encouraging you to submit the pack sizes through ex-EVMPD before February 2025, is to avoid late submissions by applicants whenever there is a crisis, because then in 14 days you will have to submit a lot of information, and by submitting this information now, we will be ready, and the ESMP team and also other teams at EMA could start preparing and doing some analysis. From July 2025, so in a month, you will be able to review the product information through the product UI and the PMS API. So you will be able, for example, to see pack sizes that we have migrated from ex-EVMPD, but you will also be able to see manufacturers for your centrally authorized product, the different information that we have. Here we have July 2025 because it's when we are supposed to open the PMS API and the product UI for centrally authorized products and non-centrally authorized products. But the product UI is already available for CAPs. So if you have any CAP under your company, you can already register in the product user interface and you can start reviewing the data that we have for those products. Moreover, from Q1 2025, MA holders will be able to provide additional information for non-central authorized products. So we will request you to provide manufacturer's data and also a structured data on the pack sizes. So what we want you to provide is the quantity and the units of measurement for those pack sizes. So for example, if you have a pack size of 20 tablets, we want you to include this information in a structured way. 2 vials, 20 vials, this information should be provided because this is going to be used by ESMP and the analytic platform to perform data analysis. This information you will be able to provide it directly in PMS through the product UI and also through the PMS API. Something very important and that we wanted to remark here, the PMS team will host a webinar on the 11th of July because we want to provide you additional information on how you can submit pack sizes through XMPD. We have received a lot of questions and I think it is really needed by the MA holders, a webinar where we explain and we can give you tips on how to provide this information, but you can also come and make questions about, okay, which pack sizes, how can I submit them, what do I need to populate in each of the fields. So please book your day on the 11th of July because we will be hosting a webinar to explain all this information. And with that, I come back to Sofia.
Thank you, Marcus. Okay, so we were talking a lot about the different phases of submission of data and what they are and for what products. And now we'll be going into the data elements and the structure of the platform and what they will look like for marketing authorization holders. Okay, we're starting with the routine shortage reporting via ESMP. So this relates to the monitoring of actual and potential shortages that can lead to a public health emergency or a major event. So we call this also preparedness monitoring. So that is available in normal circumstances, and the products in scope are all centrally authorized products. The frequency of reporting is when, of course, there is a shortage that an actual or potential one that the MAH becomes aware of. So the frequency of reporting is as required, and the MAHs need to keep that data up to date and therefore update it when new relevant information is available. So until that shortage is resolved. So on the left-hand side, you can see there will be the part of the ESMP platform will be dedicated especially to that. And to perform the routine shortage submissions, MAHs will then select the relevant products under their product portfolio, which will be presented in the ESMP platform, and download a reporting template, which will be pre-filled with the relevant product information. The information is presented at pack size for each of the countries of the EEA for centrally authorized products, and then you can insert the information, so you're compiling it and you're submitting that relevant information. And as I said, updates need to be performed to keep that information current. The template for the routine shortage reporting will be holding these data elements, and you might be familiar with the majority of them, as we have taken the data elements that have been used so far for the reporting of shortages to the EMA, which was happening by submitting a particular template to the a mailbox that was dedicated to the monitoring of shortages. And now that we have actually reduced the number of these fields, and that will be sent through the ESMP. The product information will be pre-populated for a particular MAH and for the product that they choose for which they might be experiencing a shortage. The basic product details are the PMS ID, the product full name, short name, active substances, the strength, pharmaceutical form, pack size, packaging, and PCID, and country of authorization. So in terms of the centrally authorized products, we are displaying each of these products per each EEA country for the submission of data on shortages. The marketing status information will be available in that template, and it will be pre-populated with data coming from IRIS, which means that if there needs to be some update made to the data on the marketing status of a centrally authorized product, it still needs to be submitted via IRIS, and it will be automatically read by the ESMP. So MAHs need to ensure that the data that they have in IRIS for the marketing status of CAPS is up to date. Because if a product is marked as not marketed in IRIS, it will not appear in the data submission template, because of course you cannot have a shortage of a product which is not marketed. So only marketed and temporarily unavailable products will be shown in the reporting template. So if you will notice that some of your products might be missing from the template, a wise thing to do would be to check what is the marketing status, the latest information in IRIS. And then if it is then updated, it will be reflected in the ESMP accordingly. In terms of the shortage information, we are collecting information on the shortage status, so whether the shortage is active, potential, resolved, or if there is maybe no shortage, and the information on the shortage start date, expected start date, shortage end date, or expected end date. The point in the supply chain at which disruption occurs, the root cause of the shortage, and then the countries in which manufacturing issues, increased demand, or distribution issues occur. The point in the supply chain and the root cause of the shortage, and also the shortage status, will have their own predefined RMS lists that are actually already available, and MAHs will be using these RMS identifiers to submit data, and multiple values will be possible to insert. We're also giving a field which is free text to provide any additional information on the root cause of the shortage. We'll also be asking about shortage prevention and mitigation plans. So the first field will be an RMS list, and the second will be a free text field where you can elaborate a bit more. We're also doing an impact assessment by having the information on the affected population estimate to be inserted, the market share, and the shortage impact risk assessment. The impact risk assessment is purely a field which with values low, medium, and high, and is up to the marketing authorization holders to provide that initial assessment. And there is also a free text field added there. Potential alternative therapies. So there is first a field that where you can indicate whether there are alternatives available or not, and if there are, we are asking for alternative therapies. So we are not asking necessarily for you to enter information on the product names of other marketing authorization holders that could be having that product, but the information on alternative substances. So here at the EMA, we hold information on products authorized in the EEA. So if we know about alternative therapies, we can then find out which are the products that contain these compositions. So you are asked to insert active substances or combinations of active substances that could be considered as therapeutic alternatives. So that's not necessarily just from the same ATC code. We're also asking for the Rapid Alert reference number and whether other authorities have been notified. So, for example, other NCAs or EMA through other channels, including reference to the quality defect report. A reference to related pending regulatory actions and required NCA actions, if any. So this is the entire reporting template, and as I said, information to be sent to the ESMP only when there is a potential or actual shortage, and the information to be kept up to date with these data to be submitted. Now, when you choose the product in the ESMP for which you want to report a shortage, as I said, you will have the data presented for all the countries in the EEA. So you can say that for a particular country, you are facing a shortage, but also to say that in other countries of the EEA, there is no shortage. So that will also help us to have a full picture of the situation on the EU market. Now we're moving towards the data sets to be submitted when there is an MSSG-led preparedness or a crisis situation. So for the first one, there doesn't need to be a crisis happening, which is recognized by the European Commission, but a situation where the MSSG feels that there is a need to monitor a subset of products very closely, as otherwise there might be a major event or happening in essence. So the trigger is the MSSG announcement of the preparedness exercise, and the list of those medicines could contain both centrally and nationally authorized products. And the very same is for crisis, as Monica stated previously, we have already had an MSSG-led preparedness exercise for the monitoring of antibiotics, and also in crisis situations, we were monitoring medicines crucial for the management of COVID, but also Mpox. And here, MAHs will be submitting data directly to the ESMP when these situations are announced. The ESMP platform has been structured in a way that as the MAHs will have to submit several different categories of data elements, that the platform has a left-hand side navigation which will guide the MAH through the data submission process. So first, they will be seeing their critical medicines, which are in scope of crisis reporting, and they will see their related marketing status information. Then there will be a link to the submission of marketing status for centrally authorized products, so they can go back to their IRIS submissions and perform updates as needed. The marketing status for NAPS data submission, and then the submission of data for availability and manufacturing, and as well alternative therapies. So these are all the data submission flows that the MAH will have to complete when there is a crisis or MSSG-led preparedness announced, and they have products which are in scope of those reporting requirements. So to start with my critical medicines, so the ESMP will be showing all the medicines in the MAH's product portfolio that have been marked as critical for a particular crisis or MSSG-led preparedness exercise, together with their marketing status. So here, each marketing authorization holder will have a comprehensive overview of the scope of reporting and the corresponding marketing status values submitted previously via IRIS, to ensure that that data is up to date. And as I said, the data coming from IRIS will be automatically integrated within the ESMP. There is a standalone data reporting flow for the information on the marketing status of nationally authorized products, as we are only asking for the information on the marketing status of nationally authorized products for that particular subset of products. So the data flow and the data submission goes directly through the ESMP, and once the information on the national authorized products is submitted via that standalone flow, the marketing status of those products will also appear in this particular page that will show all the critical medicines for each marketing authorization holder. So that's important to note, that this view will be tailored to each marketing authorization holders according to their access rights, and will show only the products that they own and are under their portfolio. So here there will be a link, as I said, to Iris for the MHs to perform any updates or submissions for the marketing status of centrally authorized products. And then they will be able, once they have completed that submission, the data will be reflected in the ESMP. For marketing status of NAPs, as I said, that data will be flowing directly through the ESMP, and to perform this submission, the MHs will have to download a reporting template, which will be pre-filled with the relevant NAP product information at pack size. So this is also important to note. The data needs to exist at that level of granularity in PMS in order for it to be reflected here, because the marketing status information needs to be specified per each pack size for each country in the EEA. So once the industry has compiled that information, it will be submitted directly there, and then updates can be performed to keep that information current. This is what the data reporting template for the marketing status submission will look like. The basic information on the products you have also seen it is absolutely the same as it is in the reporting template for routine shortage reporting. So it lists data from PMS with the product name, active substance strength, pharma form, and pack information, and the country of authorization. And again, these products will be listed per each country. And therefore, DMH is asked to insert the data on the marketing status, so whether that product is marketed or not. And if they plan to permanently withdraw the product, then we're asking for that date. And we are having a free text field, so they are allowed to enter any additional information. Now we're going to the availability submission template. So this is, in essence, the reporting template with the biggest amount of information, and which is directly influenced by the information on the marketing status, as only products which are marked as marketed will be available in this template for further data submission to be performed. So it's important to note that the previous steps need to be performed in that order to ensure that the data on the marketing status on CAPS is reliable and the data on the marketing status of NAPS is submitted. Then we go to the submission of the availability, which contains information on shortages, sales volume, forecasts of sales and supply, and other information for those particular medicines in scope of a specific list of critical medicines. To perform this data submission, MHs will download again a reporting template filled with the information of products in their product portfolio, which are subject to that close monitoring. It will potentially have CAP and NAP information depending on which products you own and what is the scope of the crisis or MSSG-led preparedness. And as always, the data is to be compiled and submitted, and the updates need to be performed and kept occurring at a frequency defined by the MSSG. Here, the templates contain again the product information pre-populated for you, and you can see there is also the field of the marketing status, which will display the marketing status which has been submitted in previous steps, but it cannot be changed here directly. So the marketing status for CAPS, still the data submission and update flow remains in Iris, and for the NAPS, it's to be performed in the data flow that I just explained. but still for reference it is still displayed in this template. The information on the shortages, the basic one is again the same as it is for the routine shortage reporting, using the same RMS lists, and for the prevention and mitigation plans as well. The market share and the additional information on the market share is also displayed here. And we will be asking for the sales volume, which will be the monthly average, but also the sales volume which existed before a particular public health emergency or a major event was announced. And a free text field will be available. So we're asking for the information on the current sales volume and the sales volume which was that was present when there was no crisis situations, as that serves for our data analytics purposes to see what was the baseline before a crisis hit and potential increased demand, which then actually increased sales, which then happened when there was a need for that, influenced by that particular crisis or a particular situation. The sales forecast will be submitted for the following 6 months. And of course, whenever we are announcing the start of this data submission process, we will be notifying you which month should be considered as month 1. Now in the template, it's written as months 1 to 6 to leave it generic, and therefore it can be used for any situation we find ourselves in. And the same will be happening for the forecast of supply. So again, for the following 6 months. And as the data needs to be sent in at a particular frequency, then the months will shift and the data needs to be submitted for the following 6 months thereafter. We're also collecting information on the available stock and the desired safety stocks, and we're allowing a free text field for any additional information. Now, it's also very important to note that now I'm going through these data fields rather quickly, but we also plan to release an implementation guide, which will be detailing these data fields, what the particular information is that we're asking and expecting in each of these data fields, and what the validation rules will be in place as well. So that will be published early July, and all that will be explained there. Then we're going to the manufacturing information, where for medicinal products, which are again subject to particular crisis or MSSG-led preparedness reporting, we will be collecting data on the manufacturing method. So whether the MAH is using their own factory or a contractor, what are the production plans and production capacity, which we are measuring as average and peak outputs of a previous year for the active substances and the final dose form. So the qualitative information on the production plans and production capacity is requested at these 2 levels. So active substance, so for each of the active substances in the products which are in scope of crisis or MSSG-led preparedness monitoring, and the final dose form. So to perform this data submission, MAH just will again download a reporting template, which will be pre-filled for them. And the information on the centrally authorized products will be listed alongside their manufacturing sites for all of the stages of the production of the product. So we're getting that data in PMS, and it also has the relevant OMS identifiers of each of the manufacturing locations. And the data on the production plan and capacity will then be inserted for each for the locations where the API and final dose forms are made. On the other hand, for nationally authorized products, we do not yet hold the data on the manufacturing sites. And as Marcos was referring, that data will be submitted subsequently, and therefore, once we have it available, we will be integrating it within the ESMP. Since we cannot be asking questions about each of the particular locations for the manufacturing of NAPs, since we do not know them, we will be only asking for the quantitative information on the production plan and capacity. So therefore, how much of the API do you plan to be making, and how much of the final dose form. So as always, the data needs to be then compiled and submitted, and the updates to this data need to be performed at the frequency defined by the MSSG. The information here we are presenting at medicinal product level, so not at pack size. So we'll be showing the full product name, the active substance, and then populating the information from PMS and OMS with the organization ID of the manufacturer name, the operation type ID, so which part of the production process this particular location is responsible for, the location ID of the manufacturer, and also the city and the country. We will be asking whether the manufacturing site listed there is active or it's a backup site, and whether the site is a contract manufacturer. The information on alternative sites is collected at the level of location ID. So if that particular alternative site is already registered in OMS, then you can insert the location ID. But if you do not have it, then you can just input the information on the country where any relevant alternative sites that can be considered as alternatives can be used. Of course, here we are, of course, not saying that it is that the switching of manufacturing to that alternative sites would be able to be done in the short term, but nonetheless, this is informative and only opens doors for conversation in case there is a major shortage happening. Now we're also collecting data on the production plan and the capacity, and we will be displaying information. So the information on the production plan for the API is inserted at the level of kilograms, and for the final dose product at the level of that unit. And here we're asking for the global monthly production plan for the following 6 months, so following the triggering of the reporting, and we'll have a free text field for any additional information to be inserted. In terms of the production capacity, so here we are approximating that data by the average global monthly production output of the previous year, and also the peak global monthly production output of the previous year. So this information, of course, we know that the maximum production capacity is hard to enter this information because, of course, production lines have multiple products, and it's not a singular piece of information that can easily be entered, but is something to be determined by a complex environment of the manufacturing, and therefore we are using these two values as approximations and again as doors to conversation if we are faced with a situation where we need to come up with alternative plans for the production of the product or the API. It's also to note that we are currently working on the refinement of the feature for the submission of manufacturing information for nationally authorized products. The one for centrally authorized products, we have already developed it, and I will be showcasing it in the system demo on the 26th of June, so in 2 days from now. So you can see that already there, and there might be slight tweaks to how the information on nationally authorized products is presented in this template, but in essence, the data submission flow should remain unchanged also for nationally authorized products from what it is presented here. The last piece of information to be submitted during crisis and MSG-led preparedness monitoring is the information on the alternative therapies. So for the products which are in scope of this reporting, we'll be asking for active substances and compositions that can be considered as therapeutic alternatives. So that data will be inserted directly in the ESMP via a web form. So this will not be an Excel template as it is for all the other data submission flows, but again, there will be a dedicated window in the ESMP platform where centrally authorized products will be grouped by short name, active substance, and pharmaceutical form, and nationally authorized products are grouped by the active substance and the pharmaceutical form. It is important to note that, of course, we are not expecting you to know all the potential therapeutic alternatives that other marketing authorization holders might own, but we're just asking for the information on alternative substances and compositions of alternative substances that can be considered as therapeutic alternatives to the best of your knowledge. So, of course, this is also a requirement from the regulation, and we have worked with our subject matter experts to try to reduce this data submission flow to the least amount of data elements, and also considering the fact that they might not be aware of all the competitors' products, and they, of course, do not need to be aware of that, and that the EMA owns the information on the products, and therefore, if we know potential active substances that can be considered as alternatives, we can deduct what products they refer to in the EEA. So, as I said, the products are listed mostly by active substance and pharmaceutical form. For centrally authorized products, they're also grouped by invented name. And the web form will be having two data fields: the alternative substances, where the actual compositions can be inserted, and a tick box to notify that there are no available alternatives if that is the case. So the web form will actually present the active substances and combination of active substances of all the valid products authorized in the EU and EEA. So there will be a searchable field which will have all this information there, and then you search by the keywords and choose one or more active substances or active substance compositions which could be considered as alternatives. And that actually concludes the data submission flow for crisis and MSG preparedness. So just to go to I can't go to the back slide, can I? Yes, I can. So all the these separate submission flows will, as I said, will be presented in the ESMP as a sidebar, so you can see very clearly what are the steps that you need to take to populate all the required information. And the information on some of these data submission flows need to be updated only when there is a change to that information, but some of them, such as the availability information and on the info on manufacturing will need to be submitted at regular frequencies defined by the MSSG. So this was in essence a high-level overview of each of these features. But you, for our die-hard fans that have been following the development of the ESMP, you had the opportunity to see those features in actions during our quarterly system demos. As we develop them and when the testing is also completed. So all of these are recorded and available on the ESMP website, along with a list of features that were demonstrated in each event. Also, this is I'm going to use this as a segue to also present the ESMP webpage that is now available on the EMA website. There is a link to it at the bottom right of the screen, but of course, if you Google EMA ESMP, it will probably take you there as well. So that we're using as a primary access point for all available information related to the ESMP, and also as a comprehensive and updated knowledge repository. So that will give you also an overview of the ESMP, the regulatory context, and the expected impact of the implementation, which of course we presented here as well. And you can also through that get updates on the development, including any information milestones and availability of relevant resources. And this will also give you access to all the ESMP references in one place, links to event pages, recording, and technical guidance as it becomes available. And we will be regularly updating that with new and additional content. So that is a good place to keep up to date and get all the relevant information, including the technical specifications, which will be placed there. That's it from me for the time being. I'm going to pass it over to you, Pedro.
Thank you so much, Sophia. And let's move on. So we are now approaching the last part of this webinar. Sophia, during her presentation, mentioned the importance of the interoperability between the ESMP and marketing authorization holders, also NCAs, by the way. The solution, the platform ESMP will offer two options to submit information on shortages. Option 1, by default, will be the submission of datasets, a spreadsheet via user interface. So, in other words, as already mentioned before, these datasets are routine shortage, MSSG-led preparedness, and crisis reporting. So you'll have three types of datasets, as Sophia showed before, with a great level of granularity. And as of November 2024, this year, this solution, this option is available for the submission of data. The second option is the submission of datasets. Again, the same examples, although we will do this in a phased approach. But the second option will be via machine to machine. So no user interface. And if marketing authorization holders opt to use this machine to machine connection, then this solution, the first dataset, will be available from February 2025. In other words, when the ESMP goes live for NCAs. As part of this work, the interoperability and also the communication plan, all users will have access to training sessions and training materials to learn how to use and submit the data through both options. So information will be available in the ESMP website, and progressively until end of this year, we will be releasing information that will help you to understand how to use and eventually what kind of submission you will or option you will opt. As I refer before, we have prepared communication plan. And this webinar does not exhaust the contact between the agency and particularly this project team and all the future users of this new platform. Many other events are planned and will be organized according to different stakeholders. So we'll have specific events for marketing authorization holders. This is the first. We'll have also events for national competent authorities and also the general public. I also would like to remind all participants that we have 3 SMEs industry subject matters experts working with us since the beginning of the development of the ESMP. And I also invite you to reach out to them should you have additional questions or inputs you would like to give to the project. Now, specifically for marketing authorization holders, our plan foresees 2 groups of initiatives. The first group called training and is represented by the round shapes. It contains training events, user guidance, and technical specifications. And the second group is communication and engagement. It is represented by the diamond shapes, and these specific actions, they refer to specific communications, including presentations, targeted mailing, and newsletters, articles. The content, most of the content of these events, including also the content of this webinar, will be posted on the ESMP webpage. It's easy to find it. If you open your browser, search for ESMP, and you'll go directly to the ESMP webpage. That's the main page where we'll be posting information, relevant information, as I mentioned before. And as we go ahead with the implementation, more information will be made available in the ESMP webpage. An important note, the presented times, both here and before the overall communication plan, may be subjected to change. Specific dates will be confirmed closer to each deadline. Yes, we can now move on. So, main upcoming events. In the communication plan, you could observe that there are many upcoming events, but if I could highlight the 5 that are just around the corner, I would say a regular update on the ESMP webpage, and certainly this week will be an update. As Sophia mentioned, on the 26th, this week, we'll have the EMA quarterly system demo, and the ESMP slot will be from 9:25 to 10:05. I again reiterate the extension of the invitation to you. Please connect, log in, because Sophia will be presenting some of the functionalities that will be using the data sets explained with high level of granularity this morning. On the 28th, we will have industry standing group meeting, and again, has been a practice. We will be there with our PMS colleagues, and we will have the opportunity to share the progress of this product, also underlying important deadlines and the work we are doing, including the communication plan and also feedback on the webinar today. In July, technical specifications will be published in the our ESMP website. These technical specifications for marketing authorization holders implementation guide. Sophia also mentioned. So with a high level of granularity, we'll have access to the fields, data sets. What does it mean? So that you can have a greater understanding how to submit, also prepare your systems if you want, or prepare your processes and your team to be ready for the submission of data as of November this year. And finally, in July, we will release the SMP communication plan, and hopefully some of the specific dates might be updated, as I said, but we don't foresee major changes in what has just been presented. Part of this communication, there is also a legend on the bottom of this page. We are, with this communication and major milestones, we want to target marketing authorization holders, NCAs, but also the general public. And a good example of the general public, given the fact that the broadcasting is open, is the quarterly system demo, where the SMP will have the opportunity to demo what has been developed in the last quarter. And with this part, we come now to the Q&A session slot of this webinar. I see that some of you have already posted questions, and we will take some of those questions. But in order to have a structured approach, I will give the floor to Abina. Lisa.
Thank you, everyone who's already submitted questions. For the other people who have not yet done so, please, if you have any questions or want to upvote any questions, join via the QR code you see on the screen right now. For upvote, you can click the little thumb, and yeah, we will go through the questions now by votes. If we can go to the next slide, please. Yes. So the very first question that we have is, do we need to submit XMPEG pack sizes even if they are not marketed? Who would like to take this question?
I can take this one. So in principle, you can submit pack sizes that are only that are authorized, that are in the market. So if you don't have products, or this pack size specifically is not in the market, then it's not needed to be submitted to XMPD.
Okay. Then the second question, could you confirm that the scope is only the critical medicines?
Yes, indeed. So the scope of crisis reporting and MSSG-led preparedness reporting is medicines which are deemed critical for that particular situation. In terms of the routine shortage reporting, that's all centrally authorized products. As I said, if the MH is aware of an potential or an actual shortage. That is it.
Thank you, Sophia. Okay. The next question is, what is the frequency? What is the frequency of publication of the critical medicinal product list? We will go with this one now. I see the upvotes are in between. They're both 26, but we will go with that one from Elizabeth.
Thank you. So I think this question relates to the union list of critical medicines. So we published the first version in December of last year. The second version is due to be published at the end of this year. And we will have subsequently updates on a yearly basis. I think one thing that is important to mention is that we don't expect then considerable changes to the union list once we publish the second version at the end of this year.
Thank you, Monica. Then on to the next question. What are the differences for ISPOC and ESMP industry user roles? Who is supposed to submit the shortages notifications? Sophia?
So the industry ISPOC should be someone who oversees the product supply chain, the manufacturing capacity management, and the shortages for the products in their portfolio. The ESMP industry user role does not necessarily need to be the same person who is the ISPOC. So within the company, the users can choose themselves who will be the person responsible for the data submission to the ESMP, and the corresponding access roles will be assigned to that user through IIM. So also in the user guide, we'll be specifying how that rights are to be requested.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question, does it mean that we have two processes in the future? The current decentralized one of normal shortages and a centralized one for crisis and preparedness situations? Yeah.
So I think perhaps first I would like to clarify, during crisis, reporting of shortages will be through the SMP for CAPs and NAPs included in the list of critical medicines for that specific crisis. During preparedness activities, notification of shortages of centrally authorized products will be done to the EMA and also to national competent authorities of the member states affected. And that is the case for notification of shortages of nationally authorized products that continue to be submitted and notified to the national competent authorities in the member states. So for the next question, do we need to continue to inform national competent authorities? Yes, so the notifications need to continue to the national competent authorities.
Thank you. Then the next question in regards to data fields. Which come pre-populated and which ones do you have to enrich in the Excel table? How often is an update needed after first sending or only upon shortage?
Okay, so for each of the data fields, now in the presentation, we marked precisely which are the data fields pre-populated. And that mostly refers to the product information which is coming from PMS, and also the manufacturing information of centrally authorized products which is coming from IRIS, and therefore the data submission data update process still remains in IRIS, and the data is then integrated within the ESMP. How often the updates are needed? Well, if we're talking about the routine shortage reporting, then the data needs to be updated whenever there is new information available or a shortage becomes resolved. And if we're talking about crisis or MSSG-led preparedness, for most of the data fields, such as data submission flows, such as the availability of medicines and manufacturing information, that will be have to be submitted submitted at a particular frequency defined by the MSSG, but information such as the marketing status and alternative therapies are pretty stable, so they only need to be updated whenever there's a new information available and there has been some change. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Then on to the next one. Can you confirm if we have to report shortages for NAPs through ESMP or only for CAPs?
So the only situation where there will be a need to report shortages to the ESMP for nationally authorized products is in a case of public health emergency or a crisis, or MSSG led preparedness activities. And the MAHs will be aware of the requirement for notification of shortages for NAPs, because we will set up those lists of medicines, so crisis-specific lists of MSSG-led preparedness, lists of medicines, and this information will be available in our website.
Thank you, Monica. All right. The next question is in regards to Icebox. Will they have the possibility to submit data in ESMP, only the Icebox, or do you think to create several access types? This will help in backup organizations for companies.
I'll take that one. So indeed, the companies can have multiple users submitting data on their behalf. So all of these users will have read and write access and will be making no distinctions between them. So indeed, you can have people with that act as backups, and they can also submit data.
Thank you. Then, who within an organization do you recommend to act as the SPOC?
So I addressed that in the previous question. So again, someone with a good oversight of the supply chain, knows about the manufacturing capacity and the shortages that are happening, and that can then act as that main contact point for any communication on the supply and availability of medicines.
Okay, thank you. Does EMA plan a E2E ESMP PMS pilot open to the industry?
So for the integration of PMS data, we do that consistently, and the population of data from PMS in the ESMP is shown in every system demo, as the product information is used as the basis of that data submission. So the information that we are ingesting and importing from PMS is just shown in the templates. In terms of the data flow from XCVMPD to PMS, that is outside of the scope of the ESMP, and the ESMP will not be holding pilots on that. For the general UAT on the platform, we will be holding that closer to the go live, and also the end-to-end which we call the end-to-end UAT. So for the submission of MH data at the same time as the NCA data, and to see how that if that data flows absolutely as we expect it to be in the data analytics platform. That will be done when all the features on the MAH and the NCA side are available, so we can have that full end-to-end UAT. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. How does the EU system interact with national platforms? Does one prevail over the other? Are there alternative or cumulative?
The SMP platform will be available for NCAs, and if NCAs will, it's up to NCAs to define whether they will use the data submission through user interface, or connect the SMP with their national systems through an API or machine to machine. So strictly speaking to the question, does the SMP interact with track stock? I don't know what is track stock. No, unless track stock is a national system used by an ESM, a member state, and that member state decides to use API made available by the ESMP. So that's the only interaction we will have up on to decision of the national member.
Thank you, Pedro. The next question. According to the Global ESMP Working Group, a crucial prerequisite for mitigation of shortages is the global PHP ID. What are your plans for implementing the global PHP ID from WHUMC?
I'll start that one. Maybe Marcus, you can then take over. So yes, we are actually working together also with a global IDMP working group on this particular use case. We are currently working together with the members there to actually explore how the data connections could be made between these global systems using indeed that identifier. And also we are will be doing some data analysis using these particular identifiers to group products and to then assess the supply and demand of products on these groups of products. Now, in addition to that, of course, the PMS needs to contain the data on the global PHP ID, and I will pass to Marcos to give more info on that.
So I'm not directly involved in the discussion of the PHP ID, but our boss is discussing this with this IDMP working group and how this PHP ID is going to be implemented in PMS. So for the moment, there are only discussions. I mean, heavy discussions, and they are meeting currently. Like I don't know how often, but they are having several discussions, and we will have it as soon as it is generated. But for the moment, I have no news on when this is going to happen. But of course, it's one of the main goals that we have also in PMS to be able to capture the PHP ID in our platform. But for the moment, I cannot provide really additional information on that point. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to the next question. The insertion of data in ESMP would be possible only through download and upload the prefiled file, enriching it requested data, or do companies will have added functions in ESMP?
I'm not very sure what this refers to. The data can be edited by submitting new information. So the edit function is handled through that. So in the templates to be downloaded, there will also be the latest information that was submitted by the company for that particular data set. And then if there is any change that the company wishes to insert, the data simply needs to be changed, and then the new template needs to be uploaded with the fresh information, and then we'll consider that the latest source of the truth.
Okay, thank you. Then the next question is in regards to interoperability. Will machine-to-machine interaction be available with start of the platform in February 25 or later? Messaging format is FAIR, write, or FIRE?
At least one dataset machine to machine will be available with the start of the platform in February 2025. That's the plan. And then depending on the usage of this API and the appetite to use more APIs, we will be developing additional APIs. The message or the format is not FIRE, and we had many discussions about the content, whether or the format, whether should be FIRE or not. We opted for a different technology, if am I cool, and that the technology will be also open, an open technology based on XML and HTTPS will be available from February 2025.
Thank you, Pedro. Moving on. How often must the marketing status of a pack size be updated? Will there be regular maintenance cycles next to PHE and MEEs so that data for counting is accurate for all authorized products?
So you are absolutely encouraged to. I mean, you should be keeping that data up to date within Iris for centrally authorized products. So when there are any updates to that information, please do insert them already. And for nationally authorized products, as this data will be requested only for a particular scope of products when a particular crisis or MSG-led preparedness exercise is launched, then indeed the data again needs to be kept up to date. And yes, that can also follow regular maintenance cycles when we'll be requesting the data at a particular frequency defined by the MSSG. But indeed, you will know best when new information needs to be updated and if there's any changes in the manufacturing status for any of those products. Thanks.
Thank you. The next question is, for now, is the iceberg registration only required for MIHs with medicines on the critical list?
So the requirement for ISPOC registration stems out from Regulation 22.123, and this is for all products that are authorized in the Union. The requirement was for registration of ISPOCs for all medicinal products, and this was for a period of 6 months after the entry into force of legislation 22.123. So I would urge all MAHs that do not have an ISPOC registered to do so as soon as possible.
Thank you, Monica. All right. Will there be a UAT beforehand? I believe we already touched on that.
Yes, I did. And yes, there will be.
All right. And the next one, we also already touched on it a bit, but maybe there's some clarification still needed. By when will the machine-to-machine by when the machine-to-machine would be available? It will work via gateway, so we can integrate this in our RIMS.
Yes, so machine-to-machine dataset will be available from February 2025. And it will be consumed through an API. So EMA will be made available this API in due time. It will be informed, and then if you want to use the API and adopt your internal systems to through this API submit data to the ESMP, that's the goal. But that's the option. You will be available, but won't be via a gateway.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Next question. For shortage of cut medicines that are not in the critical list, is required to report to EMA via ESMP by the MAH, reporting local authorities. What are the main differences in reporting when products are not in the critical list?
To reply to that question, I would need to go through the entire presentation that we did today. But in short, so routine shortage reporting of centrally authorized products indeed will be required to report to the EMA via the ESMP by the MAH. The reporting requirements towards the local authorities remain. Also, in terms of the main differences in reporting when products are not in the critical list, I guess the differences in reporting when products are and are not in the critical medicines list. And again, if we're talking about routine shortage reporting versus the reporting of critical products in scope of an MSSG-led preparedness or crisis, there, of course, in MSSG-led preparedness and crisis. It's quite a mouthful. The reporting is much more in depth, and there are much more data elements to be submitted, and the data needs to be submitted at a particular frequency as defined by the MSSG for most of these data sets. So yeah, that has been defined in detail, and all the data elements have also now been explained in this webinar. So if you hadn't been able to catch that, the recording will also be made available, and then you can go through that again in depth.
All right, thank you. How long in advance on shortage should be notified?
Currently, and following the guidance on the detection and notification of shortages by MAHs that was published already in July of 2019, shortage to be notified as early as possible and no later than 2 months before the actual shortage.
All right. Should we register industry iSpock via IRIS, or will the registration be moved to ESMP?
I'll take that one. So the registration of the industry SPOCs or the iSPOCs will remain for the time being in IRIS. So we might consider migrating that within the ESMP post February 2025, but for the time being, the process remains as is.
All right. Will you share presentations with participants? Yeah, I can take that. Yes, we will. We will share the presentation as well as the recording of this webinar. All right. How do you manage product shortages? What actions will be taken?
So how do we manage product shortages? So once when the agency is notified by a shortage of a centrally authorized product, we collect all the information from the MAH if needed. So if the information that is provided with that notification is insufficient, we go back to the MAH and we collect further information. We also liaise with the member states to understand the criticality of that shortage in the respective member states that are affected. And then we work together with the national competent authorities of the countries affected and all member states represented in the SPOC Working Party to understand what are the mitigating measures that can be put in place to mitigate the impact of the shortage, or indeed, if possible, to prevent the shortage in the first place. So EMA liaises closely with the MAH, but also, of course, interacts with the affected national competent authorities, as well as the SPOCs from the national competent authorities or all the other member states, to put in place measures, as I said, to prevent the shortage if possible, and if not, to mitigate the impact of the shortage to patients if it cannot be prevented.
Thank you. When ESMP will become active, should industry keep both platforms updated, IRIS and ESMP, for CAP medicines?
So thank you for that question. I think it's a very important one because there is a very clear distinction between the information submitted through IRIS and the information submitted through the submitted through the SMP. Now, in IRIS, the information on the marketing status on centrally authorized products is submitted and will continue to be submitted. In the SMP, the companies will be submitting data on the shortages and also on the wider subset of data elements when a crisis or an MSSG-led preparedness exercise is triggered. So the ESMP will be using the information coming from IRIS, but the data on the marketing status of CAPs will not be submitted via the ESMP. So any updates and the submission of data on the marketing status of CAPs remains as is now via IRIS. And if the MAHs then see that the data for the marketing status for their, let's say, medicines in scope of critical reporting. If such an exercise is triggered is incorrect, then they need to again go back to IRIS and update it. So there's different data submission flows dealing with different kinds of information. We only set up a standalone data submission flow for the marketing status of NAPs. Again, but only for a subset of medicines which are subject to close monitoring for crisis and MSSG-led preparedness, because that did not exist in IRIS. So that will be a standalone data flow for marketing status, but only for NAPs and only when such an MSSG-led preparedness exercise or crisis is triggered. So yes, they remain separate.
All right. Which frequency to update demand and supply information is recommended?
I'll take that one. So the information that we will be requesting for from you, which is the let's say big subset of data for crisis and MSSG-led preparedness, will only be requested from you in certain circumstances. So if a crisis is triggered or the MSSG triggers this close monitoring exercise for a particular scope of product. So only then will we request that data for you, and we'll also tell you what the MSSG defined as the reporting frequency. Outside of these situations, you do not need to report supply information, and only the routine shortage monitoring process will be active. And then that one you need to update at a frequency, in essence, as needed, and when new data is available, and until the shortage is resolved, and also to tell us when the shortage is resolved.
Thank you. Next question. Is it correct to say that for routine drug shortages for NAPs, these will be reported solely through NCAs and not direct to EMA, and only in case of crisis or MSSG-led crisis preparedness that NAP drug shortages will be reported on ESMP?
Absolute gold star for this. That is very correct.
All right, good review. Then, for centrally authorized generics or biosimilar products, when the shortage impacts only a single market in the EU, is it mandatory to report to EMA or recommended only?
Reporting is mandatory to EMA, irrespective of the number of countries that are impacted by the particular shortage of the centrally authorized product.
Will MAH need to submit info on critical medicines authorized through national MRP, DCP procedures as well, or only CAPS?
So for MSSG-led preparedness reporting and crisis reporting for the particular subset of products involved, the MHs will need to submit for central authorized products and nationally authorized products as well, if those are in the list of critical reporting. And also, it's important to note that when we refer to NAPs, we are referring to all national MRP and DCP products authorized via national MRP and DCP procedures as well.
Okay. Slide 19, will the tool or part of the tool for automated analysis and visualization be accessible to industry?
No. And hello, Veronique, who is our SME. So the tool for the automated analysis will be available to NCAs and also to further communication to the European Commission, as this will be merging the data received from the MAHs with the data on demand that we received from the NCAs, and will be then serving for further decision-making processes on an EU level.
Okay. We have a few more questions left before we will be closing. And then don't worry, the rest of the questions we will look at and respond in writing. but we have a few more. Which data information can exactly be transferred to the platform using the template? Can data about the products themselves also be transferred if they're missing in the PMS, for example?
Yes, I'll take that one. So the ESMP is the European Shortages Monitoring Platform and not the platform for the submission of data on products. So we are using the data coming from PMS, but it will not serve as a platform for reporting product data, as that remains within the remit of PMS. So any submission of product data needs to go through XCV-MPD and PMS as required, and the ESMP is only ingesting that data and using it for reporting purposes.
Are all MAHs obliged to report also parallel importers, and certain countries' PI is exempted from the reporting requirements?
So reporting to the SMP is for marketing authorization holders. Parallel importers do not need to report to the SMP unless they have a status of marketing authorization holder.
All right. Shortage prevention and mitigation plans are currently mandatory in some EU countries. Does it mean that they will be mandatory in all EU countries once the ESMP goes live?
So as you probably are aware, we have just recently published the template for the shortage prevention and mitigation plans. Those will be implemented through a pilot, and we will communicate to industry when there is a requirement for the submission of the shortage prevention and mitigation plans. Of course, that the mandatory requirements that exist in some EU countries, those need to be these need to continue as per the national legislation.
When a potential shortage is submitted, should we have then periodically update the situation regarding the shortage?
Yes, please. That would be ideal. So yes, indeed. So the data, when it's submitted through the SMP, and I think you're here referring to the routine shortage reporting, indeed, that needs to be kept up to date, and the shortage needs to be monitored until it is resolved.
When we submit the shortage notification, we did not hear anything from EMA lately how the communication will be processed within MAH.
So when you submit a shortage notification through the SMP, there will be acknowledge of receipt sent to you for every single notification that is submitted by an MAH.
All right, we have another summary. In scope of that reporting are only products published on the critical list and that are centrally authorized. Nationally authorized medicines, we still report via national reporting procedures. Question.
So, in terms of the union list of critical medicines, there are currently no immediate reporting requirements to the ESMP. So the EMA will be asking the MHs to insert data on the pack sizes of the products and subsequently information on the manufacturing sites of nationally authorized products. For the union list of critical medicines, as a wider let's say, a plan to have the data on the pack sizes of all the nationally authorized products to be submitted via PMS, but we are prioritizing the products on the union list of critical medicines. But again, no direct reporting requirements to the ESMP itself. If there is a centrally authorized product on the union list of critical medicines, that product for that product, nevertheless, the MAH needs to insert data in the SMP if there is a potential or actual shortage. So there are the standalone reporting requirements for centrally authorized products, regardless on their potential inclusions inclusion in the union list of critical medicines. And in terms of critical products for a crisis or MSSG-led preparedness, so if that happens, then these products have a standalone reporting requirement with all the data elements and data submission flows that I've just been describing.
What are the consequences for MIHs if a shortage is reported too late or with insufficient information?
So currently, there are no penalties as such for MAHs that report a shortage late. And in fact, for EMA, we note that most shortages are indeed reported very late. And in some instances, with insufficient information, suddenly industry wants to work together with EMA so that shortages can be prevented if possible, and if not, that we can mitigate impact on patients. So it is important that MAHs report shortages as early as possible, as I mentioned, and provide as much information as possible. And if the information is insufficient upon submission, EMA will liaise with you so that further information can be provided so that we can manage that shortage and, as I said, prevent it if possible, and if not, mitigate impact on patients.
All right, this will be the last question before I hand back for the closing remarks. And also please stick around for a quick feedback survey. The last question, can you elaborate on sales volume? Should they be based on the European market only or global market data?
So the information on the sales volume will be requested for each product and for each country where it is authorized. So indeed, that will pertain to a particular SKU and not global data. Global data will be requested in the sections for the manufacturing information, and that is then inserted for an API or a final dose product at a global level.
All right, thank you. As mentioned, the remaining questions will be answered in writing. Please also have a regularly look at the webpage, as this will be updated with more information in the near future. And now I would like to hand back over to Pedro for the closing remarks.
Thank you, Avena. And we are now moving very fast to the end of this presentation. Before any conclusions, I would like again to thank you for your participation. We have more than 800 participants in the meeting. If I'm not mistaken, in the last 45 minutes, nearly 40 questions have been answered. Many others will come because we want to keep you informed. Just to summarize, I think we had today a great webinar, at least from this side. That's my perspective. We started with a legal framework, understand how this frames the overall shortage management. Monica alluded to the routine shortages, and also for this specific point, centrally authorized products are only required. So it's important to retain this information. And then we also have MSSG-led preparedness and crisis reporting. And in this case, a specific list of products for those decisions and official shortages case will be defined. We know that we ask you to submit the data on the union list of critical medicines because we want to start this process, particularly in NAPS. In CAPS, we have that information in PMS. So for routine shortages, in principle, the system will be ready and you'll be ready to submit information. We also have interesting topics on the content of each data set, also the dependencies and the timelines. When do you need to submit? What will be the trigger? And what kind of information is required for the submission of routine shortage preparedness and crisis reporting. Sophia also gave you a brief update how and how many people have been involved so far in the development of this product, interactions with industry, subject matter experts, further interactions with MSSG, ISG, IT directors, so giving you a broader perspective how the development is taking place and how the ESMP product team is looking to this serious aspect in the U and EEA. So stakeholder collaboration is indeed a must and a critical success factor. And finally, we have the communication plan, what is coming ahead, how you have access to information, what will be your intersections with the team. Again, please open your browser and type ESMP, and we will find the website very easier. If you have doubts, we can also give you concrete answers or reply to your comments and your inputs. But again, I would like to reinforce the idea of getting in contact with the SMP industry subject matter experts. They have been keen in the development of the solution, particularly with business requirements, and how this could be framed to help marketing authorization holders, users, to submit information when is required. As Avina said, nearly 40 questions have been answered. Many others will come. We will try to give an answer to these questions in due time because we want to keep you updated and you want you to succeed in submitting data to the SMP. With that, we finish the webinar today. And again, thank you very much, my colleagues, all participants, and wish you a very enjoyable day. Thank you.
And please take some time to give us feedback on this webinar so we can work on improving any future communication as well.